Hello folks, my name is David Fanelli, and I think it's safe to say that for many years, the United States has maintained its dominance as having one of the greatest military forces in the world. If not, I think we can all agree that we're one of the most technologically advanced. However, over the years, we've seen some changes in our military. We're no longer focusing on the use of conventional forces. Rather, we're focusing more and more on the use of unmanned aerial vehicles, aka UAVs, or more popularly known, predator drones. Now, I'm not talking about predators like this. I'm talking about predator drones like this. Now, what are predator drones? Well, they're exactly what they sound like. They require no pilot, they can be controlled remotely, and above all, they're very lethal. The large predator drones, they can fly at altitudes as high as 15,000 meters, and they can stay aloft for 24 hours straight. The smaller ones, which you can launch from your hands, they weigh less than 20 kilograms, and they can fly 30 kilometers. Now, what's also interesting is that all of these can be controlled by some asshole sitting at a desk in Florida. So what's even more interesting is that this technology has been around for a very long time. In 1918, the first aerial drone was created, the Kettering aerial drone. And while it nowhere near matches the caliber of lethality that's found in our present-day predator drones, it still just goes to show that our government has always had this desire to find that wonder weapon that can vanquish our enemies without losing any American lives. So what are predator drones used for today for the most part? They're mostly used for surveillance and counterterrorism. Now, in recent years, we've seen a large increase in the use for counterterrorism. In 2004, the United States began attacking Pakistan with predator drones, and by March 2012, 33 predator drones were being dropped on Afghanistan per month, and 330.4 were being dropped on Pakistan per month. So clearly, these predator drones are having an impact, pun intended. And clearly, there's been some sort of ideological change. So the question is, what is that change and why has it occurred? Perhaps one of the biggest reasons for this ideological change is because of the harrowing events that transpired on September 11th, 2001. Following the attacks on the World Trade Center, President George W. Bush declared a war on terrorism. Now, as I said before, predator drones are mostly used to combat terrorism, specifically groups such as Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. So we find that a large part of this paradigm shift comes from the efficacy of the predator drones in regards to combating terrorism in wake of events such as these. In other words, their genesis comes from their combative ability. So the question is, why does it persist? Why do we continue to use predator drones and improve this technology? So the answer, my friends, is pretty simple. They work, and they work extremely well. The predator drones that we make, they're pretty cheap to produce. They require low fuel costs, low production costs, and above all, they do not require the use of American lives. They're also pretty darn good at what they do. From the time from when they were started use to March 2011, they've killed 33 Taliban and Al-Qaeda leaders and between 1,100 and 1,800 insurgent fighters in the Middle East. Those are some really good numbers. So we find that a large reason for this paradigm shift is because the military is beginning to realize just how effective these predator drones can be in comparison to conventional troops. They're much more accurate, so they claim, and they're much more efficient, both militarily and economically speaking. They're also extremely versatile. So predator drones, they were used in 1909 in Kosovo as surveillance. And nowadays, they can fire anti-tank missiles, which is simply ridiculous. And another interesting thing is that most of the US's arsenal consists of various types of predator drones and even more advanced UAV technology, such as the Global Hawk. So we find that this paradigm shift comes from the increasing advancements in military technology that the government can put forth, and the fact that we can constantly build on what we already have. In other words, we can keep putting more and more crap on a remote-controlled airplane and see what it does. So as a result, we get a perpetuation of this paradigm shift, in the sense that it's constantly snowballing. There's always going to be increases in technology, and thus there's always going to be this perpetuation of the paradigm shift. So it makes us wonder, what is the future of our warfare? Is it just going to become another arms race? And so the interesting thing is that the United States is not the only one with this technology. There are over 70 countries that have access to UAV technology, and a few of them, such as Great Britain, China, and Iraq, have access to armed UAV technology. This puts us in a pretty sticky situation. War could just become us dropping predator drones on one another until someone decides to give up. And it also leads to an interesting question about the troops. One journal article suggests that troops, specifically those in the Air Force, may become obsolete in years to come. So obviously there are a lot of ethical considerations to consider when talking about predator drones. And another big thing to talk about is the number of civilian casualties. Now, the number of civilian casualties the number still remains extremely ambiguous. However, all of this makes us wonder, will civilian casualties simply become commonplace in years to come due to the use of predator drones? And obviously, as you might imagine, all of this is leading to a lot of civil unrest, both foreign and domestically. We find in the Middle East that more and more insurgent groups are popping up and becoming more and more anti-American. And in America, the government was receiving criticism from its own people. So clearly, this paradigm shift has been having a tremendous effect on a global level. And so Albert Einstein once said, "I know not with what weapons World War III will be fought, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones." So the last question that remains is, will there really be anybody left by the time World War IV comes around? Thank you.